Access internationally, yes.
But previous, the one in our,
Application of the seal.
but the one in our original agenda said Don Berry still. So they had to make that change. That's who has gotten, yeah. Good evening and welcome to our regular City Council meeting for Kingsburg. The council chambers are open to the public at 100% capacity. Tonight is Wednesday, July 20th, 2022. Our invocation tonight will be given by Pastor John Palms, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor, if you want to come up to the center, and if everybody will please stand and join us in the invocation.
Father, as I look around this room and I see the people who are here gathered every couple of weeks to say, what can we do for our city? How do we arrange things? What are the things we can decide that will make our place safer, make it more homely for people, make it more comfortable, make it good for families and kids? And God, I just really thank you for each person that's here who gives of their knowledge, their experience, their wisdom. And so, God, I bless this. I bless everyone tonight, but I bless everyone for the rest of this year. God, as people are making decisions throughout the summer, then into the fall, and into the winter, and I just say, Lord, let those decisions be made that are so wise for our city, that take the city in a place where it's meant to be. And I pray these things now in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, please be seated. I would like to call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, can you please do roll call?
Councilmember Palmer?
Here.
Councilmember Fuso Jr.?
Here.
Councilmember Roman? Here.
Here. Thank you. Item number 2 is to approve the agenda that we have before us. I'll need a motion unless we want something moved.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 3 is listed as presentations, and tonight we have none. Item 4 is public comment, and this is a time for any citizen to come forward and address the City Council on any issue within its jurisdiction that is not listed on the agenda. A maximum of 5 minutes is allowed for each speaker, and as a reminder that we are not allowed to respond. Is there anyone here in council chambers that would like to make a public comment? Okay, so we'll start at the back, and we will move forward. So is there anyone in the very back? No? Okay, Pastor, if you want to come forward. And just a reminder, it has to be something that's not on our agenda tonight. Thank you.
And this, I'm representing the Kingsburg Community Task Force, and I just wanted to invite, we have another meeting this summer in August, and just wanted to invite somebody from the council. We just love to have your presence to our meetings and representing what he's doing in the city. We would love to have one of you come and just share concerns or fears or anything you'd like to share at our meetings. That as an invitation, you can answer. We'd love to have you come. And so the next one is first Thursday in August at 9 o'clock in the morning at the right here at, where's my brain? I'm having, at my age, I'm having problems with nouns. The city.
Is it at Herb Night?
No, right. I think it's 2 doors, a couple doors down here. What? Yes. We'd love to have you come. That's where it's going to be this time. Thank you.
We'll move to the next row. If anyone has public comment, please come on up to the speaker and state your name.
I'm Lee Darling. I'm a resident, and it's been about a 1-year anniversary since I started coming here to shoot my mouth off. But, originally, I came here to get the school crosswalks restriped, and it's been almost a year, so hope to get done before the school starts. And also, we really need to work with the state on that crosswalk over behind the Baptist church. On 4th of July, I stopped to let a family cross, and a lady passed me in the double yellow. And at night, I noticed driving by there, you can't even tell it's a crosswalk. It's so faded, and the lighting is so bad. So we really need to work with, I think, Caltrans. I found out that that's not our responsibility, Caltrans. So I found out coming to these meetings that I have other subjects that I'm interested in and issues. So I pulled papers, and I'm announcing that I'm officially a candidate for District 1. So hopefully I'll see you in the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to follow up with him on that crosswalk? I know there's been.
Yeah, I can talk to both of those items. The striping project was budgeted for in this fiscal year, and so it's out to bid currently. So I think that should have a response back either this week or early next week, with the intent of having them all completed before school starts. And then we are working with Caltrans on putting in the what we call their rapid flashing beacons at several locations on 201, including the one in front of Memorial Park, or that connects Memorial Park to the church. I think that's the one that you're referencing. So they take a little bit of time. So we're anticipating that those will probably be installed latter part of the calendar year, just based upon Caltrans permitting requirements. So.
Thank you. Is there anyone in council chambers that would also like to make a public comment before I close it? No? Okay. Hearing none, then I will move on to item number 5, which is consent calendar. These are items that are considered routine in nature and are placed on the consent calendar. They will be considered as one item and voted upon in one vote unless individual consideration is requested. Each vote in favor of consent calendar is considered and recorded as a separate affirmative vote in favor of each action listed. Tonight we have 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, and 5.5. Is there anyone from council that would like any of these items pulled? Then I will need a motion.
Make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, regular calendar. 6.1, commercial zoning update, proposed scope of work. Staff report by Community Development Director Holly Owen. Presentation by Jerry Hiddleman. Is that changed? Okay. I'll let you introduce yourself when you come up. Welcome on up. Go ahead and come up to the podium.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Eric Vonberg with Rincon Consultants. Jerry's the guy that knows more than me.
Okay.
But, he's way down in Ventura, so it's easier for me to get here from Fresno. And I'm here today under our with Fresno Council of Governments. We have a circuit planning and engineering program that is funded through Fresno COG and providing services to the 13 smaller cities within the county of Fresno. And so that's what's funding this project here that we're going on. And your staff was one of the few that have really made use of us. So kudos to them. So today we're talking about, we're looking at some issues with your zoning. First, the zoning downtown, specifically on Draper Street, and then as well some other things as far as getting more commercial development and economic development in the downtown, and then as well looking at the highway commercial zoning there. And today what we're presenting to you are our ideas and concepts that we've come up with, and to get your feedback on those, and then we'll continue that process there. So this isn't anything final or anything today. I have the column. Okay. So again, those are the staff there. That's me, Eric Vonberg. And so like we're saying here today, that's we're looking at what what improvements we can do on Draper Street, how to incorporate housing into the highway commercial, and getting your input and as well public input on what we're proposing here or the concepts here, so we can then go forward with that. This shows you your downtown right now with the form-based code, with the existing FBC 1, 2, and 3, each of which have different types of allowable uses and requirements within each of those districts. And so what we're looking at here is amending that zoning code to allow, well, here's, you know, we want to make sure that we're promoting the retail and restaurant uses, and, especially along Draper Street, as you can see in the, here shown in the hatched pattern there, that's sort of the focus along Draper Street of encouraging development as well, up to 3 stories, so we can increase the density in that area. And then within FBC2 to go up to 5 stories, which would allow for more hotel uses or additional multifamily housing and those types of uses. And then as well, proposing this FBC4, which would be a new zone district in the downtown that's would help it's right now community commercial, and so it would be along Sierra Avenue there to where it could be as well for motel use and other mixed use development and allow more commercial development here, and then hopefully attract people then into the downtown and along Draper Street. And this showing you that's that current location there of the highway commercial. That Yes, so that's where no problem. Yeah, so this is where the FBC4 would be. And then as well, this is the highway commercial zone that we're looking at of allowing for residential within the highway commercial zone. So one option in doing that is that we would add residential as a permitted use, so that would require a zone amendment to your zoning code and as well to the general plan to allow for residential in that area there. And we'd establish development standards for that, and then as well, the idea would be to try to develop a ratio of commercial to residential so that we're creating a walkable community there, so that you don't just have residential this area and then you have to get in your car to drive to do any shopping, that we can kind of mix it up. And as well, we refer to it as vertical and horizontal mixed use, which means the vertical is like you would have the retail on the ground floor and then residential on the higher floors or office space. And where horizontal would be where you would have the residential on one lot and then right next to it you could have the commercial development. What we found is that bankers and developers still aren't quite certain on how to do the mixed-use vertical development, so sometimes it can be a hindrance. So allowing for either or makes it easier for the development and to attract development in that area there. So you just have a commercial development that you build, and then you have a residential development to build. Those are all things we could look into. Another option on that highway commercial is to develop a specific plan for the area. So we'd identify a certain area that we'd develop a specific plan that would have actual standards of how to build that and where the commercial and residential would go. The problem with this is a lot of times these can get expensive and time consuming, and as well would then require a full CEQA analysis for that specific plan because it's permitting uses there. So that would be something for consideration with option 2. And then option 3 is to develop a mixed-use overlay zone, which basically would say we'd have these uses, and then you could put that, if a developer wanted to develop in that area, they could utilize this overlay zone that would then allow this different types of uses there within that highway commercial zone, and could potentially get expanded to other parts of the town if you wanted it to. But right now we're focusing on that highway commercial. And then with that, we would develop what they call objective design standards. So what that is, so that's a developer coming in, they have a list of design standards that if they follow those standards, they get approval for the project. So that there isn't, usually through those objective design standards, you don't have public hearings, and it's not a discretionary process. So it's like building a single-family house. If you come in and you meet all your building permit standards, you get to build the property. But what we do with those design standards is that then it can also, we can include things, incentive programs in those. Here's some other examples of how you could do, of objective design standards of the different spaces. Here's one of the, I'll get to the design standards, but or the options. When you're next to a freeway, then we do have air quality issues there, and so we would want to look into those issues there and address those through either objective design standards or other requirements through that, through either of those three options that we have available for you. And then here we get to the incentive program, so that you can have as this, so they allow, they provide, let's say, public parking as part of their facility, then they could, increase their density or create more open space, or having public art or public spaces for people to enjoy, then you would allow either higher density or different setback requirements or other kind of incentives that way, so that they're providing services to the city, and in return then they can get more value for their property or their project. And then another aspect that we were asked to discuss was wayfinding and trying to make sure once people come off the freeway that they can find the downtown. So looking at different signage options, you can do different street signage, colors. There's numerous ways we can do that, but we can explore that to make sure that people, when they're coming off, they know how to get to the downtown and where the downtown is, and understand that they're in the downtown when they get there. So what we're exploring here is what type of housing is needed in Kingsburg. The state has what they call the RENA numbers, the amount of housing that you need to provide over the next numerous years. And so that's what we're thinking. One of the things with this highway commercial and allowing for development in there, housing in that area there, that can help with that program as well, so that you can meet your RENA goals with the city, and identifying what fits and where within the city, focusing with this project in the downtown areas and the highway commercial zones. There's my contact information as well as Holly's. And with that, just ask if there's any questions you want, and we're trying to gain your input and feedback so that we can then move forward with this project on how you guys want us to proceed.
Okay, council questions or discussions?
I just had a question. So when you're talking about highway commercial specific to the SBC4,
Well, no, I think I mixed that up. So there's the FBC4, which would be that one corner there, just adjacent to downtown.
Sinclair area.
Yeah.
Organization stuff is.
So, yeah, I think even on the other, so in that area there of looking at creating allowing for 5-story, and that would be part of there's a new code as part of your form-based code downtown.
Okay, so our form-based code would be for that SBC4, that new area. Would that incorporate downtown? So if we're looking at changing the codes, are we talking about changing it for just what you have specifically circled for SBC4, or are you talking about what we have there, expanding that through downtown?
So it would be creating the new FBC4 area zone, but then as well we do amendments to 3, 2, and 1 as well.
But we can bifurcate those, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, this is just, it's a little bit.
Oh, yeah. No problem. And so one of the things, like with the FBC1, is right along Draper Street and those areas here. That's the area where we're talking about looking at maybe reducing the amount of office space available right there to make sure we increase the retail development and opportunities for retail and restaurant use in there to maintain the economic viability of that area there. And as well increasing the height limit in that area so that then you could have more office space on the second or third floors, along with retail, residential as well. So you're creating those opportunities for more office space, but as well maintaining the ground floor for that, maintaining the retail space.
Where did you say that was? Because I saw it was up to 5 stories.
Up to 5 stories would be in the FBC4
Okay.
in the highway commercial.
Currently correct.
What's that?
FBC4 does not exist.
No, it does not exist.
You have to create that FBC.
Yeah.
And then one specific small SBC4 area.
Yeah, yeah. So it'd have its own standards. And
Eric, that's on page 6, if you want, above your PowerPoint, if they want to take a look at where that was proposed, at this time anyway.
yeah, and then all these lines can change. So, this is just our first look at it in reviewing your code and discussions with staff of what we were looking at. And as well we would think would be a draw then into the downtown with that area. But of course, it's all market driven as well.
I have a question or two.
Okay.
On Golden State, which we have right here, do we have anything planned on that? Because I know when we had consultants come before, that was a big hotspot we were looking at. So Draper, it's Simpson. It's old, we call it Golden State or Old 99.
Right, yes.
So
I don't have
is
a
this
map
on-
of that, but that would be above this map here.
I don't believe I saw that in any of
No,
the
I don't think that's
plans.
really was an area we were looking at as part of this program.
So if you look
That's
at
going to
the
be part of the existing SBC2, SBC, the gray area.
Yeah, if you look at the scoping letter separate from the presentation, you'll see that there's a portion that includes potential amendments to FBC2 and FBC3, and that's just FBC is just the acronym for form-based code, and so there are different transects that we have. So if you're looking at that photo that's up there, sort of the gray one, which encompasses most of Draper Street and then a couple of blocks off of Draper Street. FBC2 is going to be purple, and then FBC1. Discussion that we have with the consultants was based upon the recommendations that were made by that planning group that came in 2017. So that's also part of the discussion of FBC4 is that's kind of our entryway area that you're then guiding people down Simpson Street or Golden State Boulevard, and then the entryway becomes then and then turns them onto Draper. So there are some, if you look at the amendments to FBC2 and FBC3 on Simpson Street, you'll see the potential to amend the existing building form standards to allow 4-story development, restaurants, outdoor dining, retail, personal services, and hotel uses, and then enhancing public spaces and wayfinding. Some of those things, obviously, we've already started upon, but wanted to make sure that we also codified them as part of our existing form-based code. So, big thing from a staff perspective is lots of times when a developer will come in, they'll have questions, and this becomes sort of our playbook and makes it much, as Eric was mentioning, it's objective, right? It's not our discretionary, like we want to see this, and this. And so a lot of those planning ideas and things are in the existing form-based code that got originally adopted in 2014 or 2015. So we've had a handful of years of practical experience with it, and we know that there are some things that could be amended and probably need to be cleaned up. Outside of the discussion that we had a month ago regarding office space in that small section. So there's kind of a lot to what we're talking about tonight.
A lot more, yeah. Alex, how many stories can our new ladder truck reach?
Functionally between 6 and 7, most
Okay.
likely 6, depending
Good.
upon how wide the street is.
So so one of the reasons that there's some limitations on stories that exist in the existing form-based code is that at the time that was drafted, we did not have a ladder truck. And certainly looking for that emergency at that time, and some of those limitations were in place, and so now we're in a position to
Are there any other questions from council before I open it up to public and bring it back?
Yeah, I have a question, Eric. This objective standards, you said that you can implement things with objective standards where there'd be no public hearing on the building?
Yeah, that's the new sort of the trend in the state there is to have those objective design standards, the idea of to combat NIMBYism, where people are just complaining about project without just cause, so to speak. But as well, we can develop them so that there are, what we can do is you can have different categories. So if you follow these objective design standards, you can build it. But then if you want to go, let's say, you could say 3 stories with objective design standards is by right. And then if you go 4 stories, it would require a conditional use permit or some other level, which would then be a public hearing and stuff. And as well, the other benefit with objective design standards, if it's would be referred to as a ministerial project, then you can then you're exempt from CEQA. And so then that takes that whole step out of the process as well, so that it streamlines the process and as well, makes it more less expensive for the developer coming in, and as well, it creates this certainty to developers when they come in, knowing that they do A, B, C, and D, they can get their permits and get building, and that they don't have that process of unknowns and and risking the funding. So it can potentially attract development to the city, knowing that you have those objective design standards. And through this public process right now, we can develop those objective design standards. So we have in there what you want to see as far as development there. So then that's what would occur for that area. That's the goal of having those objective design standards.
You've talked about the positive of the objective design standards. What are you seeing that are the negatives for places that are implementing that?
They've barely been implemented yet, so it's kind of a wait and see on some of that. But
are you seeing developers take advantage of loopholes in that? Or are you seeing less control from
I really don't. I haven't seen any. I said I haven't worked on a jurisdiction that has actually developed those yet, so it's a fairly new process. But we can definitely research that as part of this, and include that in our analysis.
places that have,
Yeah.
reach out to them?
I have another question. So if I'm reading this correctly, I think I'm looking at page 7, where we have the gas station. And I'm only going to use this as an example because it's on your picture. So Sinclair, Highway Commercial, they decided to, property owners, they could knock it down and put a 5-story apartment building.
If that's what we end up with, developing. But like I said, we're in that process. So if that's something you don't want to see, then we can change, have the code to not allow something like that. But
Or a hotel.
But we could do something like that, where, if that's what we put into that highway commercial allowable for residential, then, if that's what we write into the code, then yes, that's what they could do. So if it's not something you want to see. And then as well, you can do things, that's where the objective design standards would come in, where it's not just 5 stories right on the street front that you would have to, on 5 stories, you have to set back each floor so it steps back so you don't have this, mass right in front of you, and you can create different, that it would require different architectural features or things like that. Or to go 5 stories, you need public artwork, a public space at the front of that. So that's where those objective design standards can really be beneficial, because developers I'm going to give up 30 square feet in the front of my building for public space, but then I get to add another story on top, those kind of things. And it's a certainty.
So I think my biggest question or concern would be putting residential right there by that highway or freeway. Not so
Right, and
much a
that's
hotel,
what we were talking about with
Yeah.
the needing to make sure that we're not bringing livable spaces into areas that have an environmental concern or air quality concern. So there's ways we can control that, and different requirements, such as air scrubbers and other things like that. Yes.
It was on.
And it would be part of, sort of brainstorming with you and the public and business owners, yeah.
Business owners and building owners to see what other types of incentives that we could do.
Yeah, what is it that, you want to see developed downtown, and as well, what, from developers, talking to developers, what are things that are maybe beneficial to the city that are low cost to them that they would really say, yeah, I'll definitely do that to be able to develop here, So it's also, we'll do the research as far as what other current objective design standards are working and then.
Important to them to see what type of incentives, because if that's what we're trying to encourage in the downtown area or these other areas, of course, what can they get in the back end as well, so.
You're right.
I'd love to know what type of incentives would encourage them to either build or look for the type of businesses that we want in Kingsburg. I think that's going to be really important. As we move forward, I'd like to hear, obviously, from the building owners and businesses and for developers.
Yeah.
As we move forward, so I'm curious to see what you guys are.
Yeah, and I think it's what I've heard from developers, that having that certainty of being able to build, so that they can pencil out everything. Okay, I can build this, and this, and instead of having to come to a public hearing and then 10 more things are added to the project.
I think too, turning on the permitting process, because obviously time is money, I think that's important.
Yeah.
That's one thing that we did earlier, and I know that's changed a lot for us.
As this is written in FBC 3, which is downtown, and this is what started the conversation, a lot has been added onto this since we started the conversation, which we just have recently seen.
Right.
But as it's written here, in moving forward, it still would be limiting our building owners from what they could be permitted for, correct?
That's what we're looking at. So the idea of just limiting the number of offices right there on Draper Street, just that focused area there, in order to maintain the commercial viability of Draper Street. So if there's all offices there and nobody's there after 5 o'clock, it's not as beneficial to the restaurants or other retail establishments that would be there. And as well, usually you need a certain mass of restaurants or commercial activity to draw people to an area, such as going downtown. If there's only one restaurant and you go, oh, they might be too busy, I'll go somewhere else. Where if there's 3 or 4 choices, like, okay, here's my first choice. Oh, they're a little full. Okay, I'll just go next door and have it there. So you kind of need to keep that ability there for Draper Street to maintain as a commercially viable downtown.
What other communities have you seen do that?
I'm working with the city of Selma right now, and we're developing their new zoning code, and that's something that we're doing there as well, because that's the same issue there of office space there, and trying to create a more nightlife in the downtown, and to have more uses like that in there. That's something that downtown Fresno is promoting as well, especially along Fulton Street, to do that.
So are they promoting, or are they actually changing the zoning?
We're changing the zoning on Selma, so, well, technically we're not changing it because they didn't even actually have a zone. We found out.
No comment.
So they will now have an actual downtown zoning code. But we were, through this same program I'm working with you guys, we were developing a downtown overlay to do that for Selma, and then they hired us just to do their whole complete zoning code update. But
So Fresno is just encouraging, they're not changing the zoning?
well, they did change the zoning, so they did have a form-based code for downtown that does the same mixed use, encouraging the commercial on the first floor, and then office spaces and residential. Yeah, and that was involved the whole transfer of switching Fulton Mall to Fulton Street. Yeah.
And a lot of them are boarded up. I'm just going to make that comment. I was just there a week ago.
Do you have a standard number of percentage of retail compared to office space? Like if you would count all the.
Now that's part of the
buildings here
research
on
we need to
Draper
do.
Street. Do you have a standard percent that you recommend?
I don't have that number right now. I'm not an economist, but that's the research we would do to see kind of what what is a good, mix there to allow that. So it could be to, maybe, I won't throw any numbers out because they'll just be, they don't mean anything. But yeah, we want to look at that to see, what's a good ratio of allowable office space to retail and commercial establishment.
For us to give you guidance as far as the scope of what you're going to look into, correct? Am I correct with that?
Yeah.
That's what you're here for too.
And specific ideas that you have that you want for the downtown. And it doesn't have, it's not just tonight where we'll be working on this. We just got renewed on this contract, so.
Personally, I want to see mixed use. It sounds great on paper.
Yeah.
Multi-story, lots of new people. It sounds great. When you guys go back, personally, I would like to see a lot of consideration and time put into where are these people going to park their cars.
Mm-hmm.
Parking's already an issue on Draper. If we're going to add 150 new people for our zero more parking stalls, it's an issue. So I know that's one of the incentives that you have listed.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that as you come back, that's going to be real important to me.
Okay.
No matter where it is, the parking.
Right.
And how we're going to go about addressing that issue. Especially if anything on Draper, it's already an issue. So.
Right. Yeah, nobody likes them, but one of the options is to have parking meters. So then people that can want to park close are willing to pay for it, and people that are going to be here for 2 or 3 hours, they're willing to park a block off. But no, there's plenty. Yeah, we'll definitely look at the parking issue. It's always an issue.
One of the things that I would like to see is like other creative things that cities have done in the downtown to incentivize building owners and renters or leasers. I think without basically telling the building owner this is what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like other options that way. I'm speaking specifically in our downtown. I really like the ideas and the rest of the plan.
It's just downtown's a little different for us. I'm super proud of our downtown.
Yeah, you should be.
Any changes or modifications downtown, it has to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It really does. And not just perfect for us walking around, but these people that own these buildings has to be financially viable.
Right.
Those are things that are universally important to us.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if any other cities have done this, but maybe even as far as like the permitting, because I know that we're talking about limiting with that. I don't know if it could be all our current building owners are like grandfathered into something. Maybe our new building owners or new construction, maybe that could be different. I don't know. I'm just looking at ideas. I know that you had mentioned Fulton. One of the things that really concerns me about that is by limiting it, I think most of us could predict we might be headed into a recession. Fulton, more than half are boarded up. And so I would hate, that's a leap to compare, but it's one of the closest that you talked about. I think Selma, there's a lot of empty buildings too. Office space is easy when you're looking at filling a space, and retail's not. So maybe even looking at options, like if they've tried to get retail in there and aren't filling a tenant, what other options do we have after?
Yeah, we can
3
even
months,
look at
6 months.
where it's the retail in the front and an office space in the back and the first floor as well. You can bifurcate the bottom, the first floor as well would be another something to look at. Or limiting, we could say you're allowed up to so much square footage of office space on the first floor towards the rear. And where people usually come to an office for a specific purpose, so they don't need to, oh, there's the sign. Okay, I'm going to come in there and, to look to go in there. They know where they're going to get there. So having it in the back of the first floor or on the second floor, usually doesn't harm people that are using it as an office.
I know, I've heard a lot from my constituents, and people who don't live in my district. And I think that as we move forward, and I don't want to waste your time, so me personally, it's going to be a really hard time for me to get behind something that tells the building owners, like, you're going to do this when I don't own a building downtown. Nobody's telling me, you know.
No,
what
so
to
it'll be
do,
our
so-
job to show you that does this make sense or not? So that's what we're going to look at is, does it make sense to limit the, office space downtown? And if it does make sense, what's the best approach for doing that?
Will you be talking to business owners?
Yes,
And,
yeah,
okay.
that's the plan.
Okay. And building owners? Business
Yes.
and, okay.
We'll be working with staff on that, yeah.
Are there any
They know
other?
it better than me.
I think it's going to be really important for me that we work with businesses, building owners, and have like a task force that when you go out there, when your consultants go out there and talk with everybody, because like Councilmember Purcell says, that I think, this is Kingsburg, we always want to make sure we're doing it right.
Mhm.
That's really important. That whenever we do come up with is right for Kingsburg, what might be right for another city, that doesn't always fit perfectly here, but I think there's some creative ways that we can make it work that I think are going to be really beneficial to the city, that I think we can get creative, and we've got amazing people downtown that will be very vocal for you.
I like
They'll
that.
make it very vocal, which is a good thing.
Yes,
That
very
is
good.
Much love and respect. But
Rather have them talking to me, yeah.
yeah. But I think hearing from everybody, they did that through the bid process too, that I think will come up with some very good ideas for you that, take everything into consideration.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys know your city way better than I do, and so do the business owners. So that's the whole goal, is to make sure it works for everybody. Sometimes there's trade-offs, but for the greater good. But yeah, that's the whole point of, we want to get that feedback and that input, and this is just the start of the process and some of our current ideas right now. That's all.
This is something that we've needed, we're trying to think of the future. What's
Right.
best for us. And that's the only way that we keep Kingsburg living, thriving, and beautiful, and that's what we've been wanting to do for a long time, because if we just sit back, nothing's gonna happen. So I think this is something that will be needed.
Mhm.
I'm excited to see what it's gonna do.
Okay, yeah.
Kind of my last comment on it before we go to public comment. We had discussion at a previous meeting about emergency order for the office space, which I was not supportive of. But we all kind of promised that we would continue the discussion, and that's what this is. I still stand pretty firm on, I'll support hearing it out, and I want to hear all of the great ideas, but I'm not going to support something that's going to be just on the backs of the building owners. That's my biggest concern here, is if it's damning to them, I'm going to have a hard time supporting it. I just don't want to take away people's property rights that are trying to just make money and feed their families too. That's going to be the big concern from my end. I love the stuff you've talked about as far as lighting, wayfinding. I think all that stuff is probably going to be almost an automatic that we'll support.
Mhm.
Just really want to see stuff that's not going to hurt our owners. So that's
Right.
gonna be important.
Understood.
I would agree. I think maybe more incentivizing, like that route.
Mhm.
We have good people that want to see our city and our downtown thriving, but we have to figure out how to do that without penalizing the building owners or getting them on board somehow.
And that SBC4, that's going to be a very interesting conversation. It is. There's a lot of potential.
I will note, I was writing a paper with my cousin who's commercial in industry, and it was with for not a modular home, but the your Darrow's mini storage type facilities. And so I put in there an idea to make it more of a by right use, and that their group decided, no, we need to be policed. We don't want that much luxury. We'll damage ourselves by overbuilding. So they recognize that for their case, it was pretty funny. But no, it's very important that this isn't something that's going to harm downtown and the business owners. And, you know, like I said, we'll try to look at that give and take of what's going to be the best uses for the downtown, and maybe just some modification of the uses or not.
Okay, are you ready for me to open it up to public? Okay, public comment. We're gonna ask for you to start in the back and then move up to the front. Make sure that you state your name, and if you're a resident of Kingsburg, if you're a business or building owner, that might be important information right now too.
Hi.
Hi.
Sherman Dix. I'm a resident and a building owner on Draper Street. Thank you for the time tonight. First thing I want to address was this is proposed as a scope of work. So you're hiring somebody. What I was hearing from you is we want to look into this, but what I see is already prescribed solutions, especially the one that I'm opposed to, which is the limiting of office space in the Draper downtown zone. So I think if that's something you're uncomfortable with, you know, this is the person you're hiring, you could say, we don't see value in that potentially. What I heard you asking more of was some more economic factors for the downtown. And, you know, John said himself, or I'm sorry, Jerry, all of this doesn't matter unless it's market driven, right? So I think he's a planner. I'll give him that. He's expert, I'm sure, in that. I'm not sure about, you know, commercial development or economic development per se. I think what's funny to me is that what's being proposed for Draper, which is limiting the type of use, the complete opposite is happening in the commercial highway zone. It's like, let's open it up as much as possible. Let's even have apartments maybe next to the gas station. So I'm not sure how that fits in, you know, as far as philosophy. I think a perfect example why they're trying to, you know, why the proposal, which I get for the commercial highway zone, is maybe some lack of development in the business park there, but that's another symptom of zoning, right? And how that may not pencil out the way you see it. So to me, you know, putting those restrictions, you may not get the result that you want, which is more retail development. Also, you question about where is this happening, and Jerry didn't really have an answer for that. He said he's working on one in Selma. I wouldn't say that I'd look at Selma as a model, you know, for our downtown. I did research where it's been used, and I couldn't find it really. So even some places that, Sonoma County, yeah, it was one, which they have a park and they have retail around the park. They have like a limitation there, but you know, it's a very tourist destination. I don't think it's comparable to what we have in our downtown. I also kind of analyze downtown right now. So, you know, you ask about metrics, like what percentage is a good percentage of retail mix. You know, 70% of the downtown right now is retail. So, and I think we've had quite a bit of development going on now without having any restrictions. I'm much more in favor of encouragement for the desired types of businesses. Jerry, sorry, not to beat you up here, Jerry, but
Eric.
Eric. It said Jerry on here. Jerry Hittleman.
Mm-hmm.
But Eric, I'm sorry. Doubly sorry, Eric. Okay. But he also talked about, you know, offices closing at 5 or 6. If you look at most of the retail shops that are downtown right now, that's the time they close. They're also not open on Sundays, which is one of the best shopping days of the week. So, yeah, if you bring that same type of retail downtown or more of it, is it going to change the dynamic in the way that we want? I think there's some other things. You know, I know a number of you talked about the design standards. I think those are great. I think that's some of the issue. I think that's probably what's been most alarming, is seeing, you know, blinds in windows. I even noticed the building around the corner here from the vacant lot. You know, 2 brand new retail stores in there, but you wouldn't even know it because there's no signage, because we don't have a signage criteria. The trees are overgrown. You know, there's some things there that I think are more applicable to making sure that there's some vibrancy downtown. The parking issue, I think, there's other ways to make it more desirable for retail and maybe less desirable for office naturally, so that the landlords aren't forced to take maybe a subpar retail tenant because that's all they can get in without having to come back to the city for permission. So those are the things. I just feel like, for me, I'd want to know what is the data driven behind this. Where has this worked? Where is this idea coming from? I didn't really hear that. I'd be wondering, how do we know that this is the right way to do it? And if you already have a feeling that it might not be a good idea, I would say don't hire him to come. Yeah, the result is probably going to come back. Here's how we restrict office use. I mean, it says it in the PowerPoint. It doesn't say research limiting office use. It says limit office use in the downtown. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. The next row that was in front of Sherman, do we have 3 people that want to talk? 1, 2. Okay. State your name, and if you're a business owner or building owner, I think it's important.
Jennifer Dellinger, business owner, building owner, resident. I just want to reiterate, don't want to be told what to do with my properties. We try and be supportive. We try and put a various amount of people in there, various businesses in there. Don't want to push business up into a second floor where I don't think businesses will want to rent. I wouldn't want to have to tell clients, go up to the second floor to find me if I was renting on Draper, which I wouldn't do. But I also think parking is the biggest concern. I'm not interested in adding residents downtown on Draper Street and fighting for parking with them. I'm totally for limiting parking time. Yay, 3-hour parking limit. If you do that, please extend it to Marion Street so that everybody from Draper does not park on Marion Street. We would love a 3-hour parking time in front of Dillinger Chiropractic. That's all I have to say tonight.
Thank you. Michelle, your row? Nope. Okay. I think we only have city staff in the next row. Lee, do you want to make a public comment? Okay. Oh, I didn't see June back there.
Yeah, Lee Darling.
Yep.
Hey, as the city grows, has anybody made future plans for maybe a parking structure that would be vertical, like maybe by the railroad station or something, where maybe the business owners could park their cars, for free. I think if you charge, they wouldn't use it. But I know we're a small town, but we're parking is kind of a premium right now. It's hard to find a parking spot a lot of times when it's busy. So is that in the planning in the future, you think, or has anybody thought about that?
We've done several parking studies, and I believe it was maybe a year ago that it was brought out, or maybe just a little more, because you said you were here. You've been here for a year.
I might have missed that one.
Yes, about the parking around town, and my council members can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was not so much public parking that we didn't have, because we do have different public parking lots. It's just we very much want to be able to park right in front of where we're going in and out of,
right,
including employees. And so we do have public parking lots throughout
I used
the town.
The library tonight to get here, instead of parking out here.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. Well, I'm just throw it out there. And I heard parking meters. Please don't ever put parking meters in this town. You'll kill it. That's why people don't like to go downtown Fresno. The parking meters. I know they make a lot of money, but they want to know why people don't come downtown, and I think a lot of it is the parking meters. And Brandon, could you speak into the microphone more often? I can't hardly hear you from the third row. Thank you.
Yes, I can.
Is it turned off?
Yeah, turn on.
I'm on the board with FCRTA. We're looking to purchase some property too. We're trying to find some parking in the downtown area too. So that's some ideas.
And my apologies, I skipped June. I can't see you back there. Were you wanting to make a public comment? Okay. Thank you. Sir, did you want to make a public comment? Yes.
Hello, my name is John Gerard, class of 58, high school. But I live in the filthiest place in Kingsburg right now. The alley between Lindquist and, well, okay, I'll go with the school, Lincoln School. That alley is absolutely filthy. I've complained about it before to the city manager, and he has put down 4 crushes in the last 5 or 6 years. They're dust now. And the problem is the blacktop is gone. And he told me that I would have to get the other homeowners on the alley to agree to bond themselves and pay for it. Now, they tell me that you can't slow the traffic down or stop the traffic because it's a public thoroughfare. Well, it's the public that's destroyed it by running back and forth through there, trying to get out of the school district area faster. And so they drive through there sometimes 35 miles an hour. And dust comes up and it only blows in one direction, from west to east, into our property. And the place is just absolutely filthy. And I'd like to invite any one of you or all of you to come look at what I live in. It's absolutely filthy. And I'm tired of it. And I don't want to take any nasty actions. I thought I would come up and ask you to please blacktop it. The other people are not going to participate. The other owners in there, in fact, 4 of the homes on the western side are rentals. So the homeowner's not there. He's not affected by it. Okay, so on that side there's least dust anyway because the wind blows west to east and it blows it into our yard. But there's only about 4 homes that actually use the alley in there. The rest of it has been done by the public. And it's a public thoroughfare. Let the public pay for putting new blacktop down. And I'd like to recommend one other thing, too. Post a speed limit, 5 miles an hour, with a $500 fine. Slow them down. That'll also help to keep the dust down. Now, did I sound a little angry? Yeah, I am. But I'm trying to be nice about it. My wife says, don't you go down there and lose your temper. All right, spoil sport. Anyhow, thank you very much for listening to me. And I would love to have any one of you come down and look at the filth that we live in, because the other homeowners in that area are never going to agree to that. And I don't think I would either. Even if the others did, I still wouldn't agree that we should pay for it. Thank you very much for your time.
I have a question, sir. I have a question. Are there children that are also crossing in that alley?
I'm hard of hearing.
Are there children after school and before school that are walking through the alley to get to school?
There are kids that walk through there from school.
Okay, that was my question. And do we have your contact information? Do we have your contact information? Do they? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I know. Okay, thank you. Do we have any more public comment for this topic? No? Okay, we will close public comment and bring it back to the council and council discussion on zoning. Questions? Thank you. Any more council discussion on this item? No more discussion?
This, if we make a motion, is to just let them continue to research this new zoning, correct? Can you hire a consultant, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a cost analysis on this?
I think it was on a COG.
Oh, it is, okay.
Hire consultants to look into all of this for us, and then also talk to, not only look at all the different areas, but also the downtown area as well. I think it's important for the city of Kingsburg. So I'd be open to it, and I'd make a motion.
I think I still wanted to ask some questions before we did that. Were there any other questions?
I don't know if this answers your question. It's just, it's a little bit of a concern, but I just don't want to be, I just want to be clear that, like, if it is going in a direction, we're still going to have the authority to completely control everything that takes place from here. This is just for them to research this, correct?
Any zoning amendments or anything like that would have to, and honestly would probably go before the planning commission for, prior to ever coming to council. If there's not, I mean, respectfully, if there's not a desire to examine, other locations that have, because, just from a staff's perspective, a month ago, the direction was to continue the conversation, which included the potential for limitation of professional offices. But if there's not a desire to pursue that, then I would remove that from the scope and do the other things that that you're looking at. So I don't, as I've communicated with some of the folks that are here, it's not our desire to impose anything on them. It's just research and having them be a part of that conversation and looking at all alternatives. So whether that's incentives or potential limitation, potential zoning changes or use changes on the ground floor. Our intent was to kind of give you guys all of those to look at and make the best decision from there. But if there are certain things, including that or outside of that, that just aren't palatable, then that direction is yours to make. But yes, ultimately at the end of the day, the planning commission and you guys will have that review and get to choose that.
I still had some questions for Eric. So, you said that you were going to reach out to business owners, building owners. Would that be in a workshop setting? Would that be going to each business? What would the advertisement or reaching out look like?
I think at this point it'd be more, phone calls and maybe having a Zoom meeting or something like that. Just there's somewhat of a limitation on the availability of the funding through this program here. So whether we could do a workshop or not, potentially, but I think I was looking at more, surveying through just having conversations with the business owners is what I was looking at this point. But
Most business owners are busy too. I think having them come in the evening or in a workshop could be tough too. So starting off with phone calls might be the best way to get a hold of them.
Yeah, and a lot of times we can get that initial input and then maybe set up a Zoom call with all of them to then get their collective input and discussion on it too, where if some people are thinking one way or the other and throw those ideas around. But
This is only about 2 blocks. And I know there are several people that own multiple buildings. So will you call all of them if that's the case to make sure that you make contact with every
Yes.
building owner and every business?
yeah, so yeah, we just need to get that contact list. And
I think it's significantly bigger than 2 blocks. We're all focusing on downtown.
Well, that's my concern. That's what I'm talking about right now is downtown.
But I do want him to reach out to everybody that's in SB2, SB4. I mean, it does impact all of them, and I know that's a ton of work for you and you have limited resources. But I'm very different in what I'm okay with downtown versus what I'm okay with at, off of 99 and Sierra. Those are very different conversations.
Right.
And I don't want to kill this concept because I don't like the ideas for downtown. I want to see it for the other areas to see what.
yeah, and they are kind of separate. They do influence each other, but yeah, we can just do the downtown, or we can just do the create that FBC4, and it could be phased in. Where there's great support for this, so let's move forward with this portion of it, and then we'll then continue on with other things.
I think part of this could help develop areas that are going to be out towards the business park and things where we do need the development, we need the signage, we need the lighting. So for that reason, I'm supportive. I'm not super supportive of a lot of change downtown. Change is simple. It's holding on to what you have, and downtown is something great that we have that I want to hold on to. But the signage, the lighting, and all that stuff off of the freeway, I think is super important to continue that conversation. And we did promise that we were going to continue the conversation, and I want to do that. I want to make sure that we're okay with moving those lines to as part of the workshops. Because the lines are kind of meaningless at this point, aren't they?
Yeah.
We can move those around.
Oh yeah.
So let me clarify my question. What I'm most concerned about right now, I like a lot of what is being brought to us. I don't know if you feel the same as I do, but our conversation that we had, a month ago, was continuing the conversation about downtown zoning. So when I got this in our packet, I was very surprised about the scope. And I don't want to make sure that something that was very important at that meeting, I don't want to be burying it in a plan that looks good for the city and just breeze it by. I want to make sure that, yes, all of them are contacted, but I want to make sure that in this 2-block radius here, it's not even 2 blocks, it's on Draper, it's facing Draper. I want to make sure that they are all contacted, the building owners, business owners. Business owners might have a different perspective than the building owners. So the building owners to me are very important. I don't know that we've heard from a lot of them. I really want to make sure that we're making the best decision for our downtown because we've worked really hard. The people out here have worked really hard to make it what it is, and that's important to me, to hear that input. And I would hate it to be a phone call and they didn't answer the first time. They didn't.
Right.
Their input. I want to know who was contacted when that comes back. Because if we're hiring you to do this, that would be one of the expectations that I would want in order to make a really good decision moving forward. You've heard us, right? You can hear that.
Yes,
This is like our jewel, like the front
Oh yeah.
diamond, I guess
No,
you would say.
and
is
like I said,
this
they know
here?
the downtown better than I do, of course. So
Yeah.
I need their input, and then we can, develop the best plan.
When you come back, that's one of the questions that'll be asked. Did you contact everybody? Will be, so.
Yeah. So yeah, we have that. I got that on the list. And
What do your timelines look like for something like this? I know you can't give me specific. I know it's going to be partly financial, but
it's I would say probably at least 2 months just to get all that contact information, to reach out to those property owners and follow up and that kind of thing. Just so there's just 2 months there of doing that work. And so probably we could come back in 3 months or so with, an update and what we've learned so far, and here's the next steps that we're looking at, and then getting more feedback at that point, and then moving forward again.
There's several in chambers. You could just knock them off your list tonight if you wanted to at the end.
All right.
Okay, so any other questions? No. And I interrupted Councilmember Roman as she made a motion. So then we will need a second.
Second, can you state the motion again, just so it's clear?
I was just making a motion to move forward with
Consultant?
What's written here is recommending the council approve the proposed scope of sequences and direct staff to move forward with the consultant on the work plan.
Support that motion with the scope that council's given tonight.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Item 6.2, Water Conservation Turf Replacement Program Update. Staff report and presentation by Director Daniel Galvez.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Here today to give you guys an update on the turf replacement program. So we're just about headed into our first year into the program. We just finished up the first fiscal year. So you guys did approve that last September. We started taking applications. We actually got them before you guys even approved them. Started processing them in November. So the program has been renewed for fiscal year 22-23, so this current fiscal year. We've allotted $30,000 again for the program. For the program, we do offer $2 for every square foot of turf removed. Maximum rebate amount is $3,000, so we cap it at 1,500 square feet. The initial program did require that each turf replacement program have drought-tolerant landscaping, so capping off sprinklers and adding additional plantings, and that spray heads either get capped or be converted to drip. So the process is pretty simple. So applicants submit an application, staff reviews the application, we schedule a site visit. At the site visit, we determine whether the program qualifies. If it qualifies, we give them 60 days to complete the program. Once the work is done, we have a follow-up meeting to verify that the actual turf has been, in fact, taken out, that the sprinklers have been capped or converted to drip, and then we submit the reimbursement. So for this past fiscal year, as of July 11th, we have received 29 applications. 11 projects were completed in the fiscal year ending June 30th. Some of those are actually getting rebated in this accounts payable cycle for the last fiscal year. We've removed 10,796 square feet of turf and capped about 125 sprinklers or converted them over to drip. 9 applications are currently in progress, and 7 applications are waiting to be processed. There are some that they've either pulled their application due to requirements or just some kind of difficulty in completing the program. There's some examples of a conversion where they did pull the turf, added a walk space, and added some mulch as well as some plantings there. So we have had some challenges in doing the program. One of the biggest, I think, has just been the review and the inspection and the design. I think as we've kind of received the applications, some applicants were under the idea that we would design their turf removal program. And, as kind of time has gone along, There is a lot more examples now. I think there's a lot of homes that are already kind of embracing the drought-tolerant landscaping. The other has been material cost and estimates. So as they're calling around, they're kind of getting sticker shock of like, oh, this is kind of what I want to do. And, they look at the makeover shows and they kind of see like the before and afters and they're like, hey, this is what I want. And then when they get the quote or the invoice, they're like, hey, this is a $14,000 project and I'm only going to get maybe $1,200 or $1,500 rebated back to us. So it is a rebate program, so residents do need to front the cost, and then once it's complete, like I said, we do rebate them the amount. And the other one is the actual labor of removing sod. So it's not an easy task. I think some homeowners have taken it on their own of like, hey, we're going to get a shovel, we're going to hose it down a little bit and start pulling it out. And I think they found that that's pretty labor-intensive work. Not only just pulling the grass, but also disposing of it is a big it's a big hassle. It's heavy. It's not something that you can just throw in the pickup, especially if you're doing 1,500 square feet. It's not going to fit in your truck. So one of the other things that we also found was the requirement. So the initial guidelines required 4 plants for every 100 square feet removed. And one of the things we wanted to avoid was just having like mulch or synthetic grass and not having any kind of aesthetics. But in the guidelines, we did have some flexibility to modify those as we kind of went along and kind of learned. And then we also had some projects initially that just wanted to do sod removal because they already had existing drought-tolerant plants. And so initially, when we had those conversations, they didn't qualify. And as we kind of went back to some of them and said, hey, if you're still interested in doing them, we're open to doing that. Just because we found that if they've already done the work and they're not asking for reimbursement for any of the work that they've already included in their yards, like some of them had already done their planters, they just needed help getting the sod taken out. And like I said, we've allowed those projects. So like I mentioned, one of the things that we are doing to improve the program is allocating additional staff. So previously I was doing the majority of the inspections and the reviews, but I have had additional public works staff assist me in doing the pre-inspection and communicating with the residents. Design, like I mentioned before, there's more examples. There's examples that we can give and say, hey, go by and take a look at these addresses to give you some ideas of what you can do in your projects. Estimates and quotes, same thing. Like I said, we can kind of give an idea of like, hey, this is how much a project like this might cost. Sod removal, like I said, there's machines that can help you do that. We know where you can rent them, and you can use them to remove the sod if that's something that you want to do yourself. Reducing the amount of plants required, and then also allowing for sod removal programs if they fit a certain criteria. If there's some that it just doesn't make sense, and there's other trees or plants that are already drought tolerant, like I said, we're allowing the sod removal only. The sod removal and then just having turf applied there. So like I said, having some flexibility in the program has definitely allowed us to be more successful in approving some of these projects. So we do have some goals. So one of them is to improve the review and pre-inspection timing. So once we get the application, to review them, to make contact and let them know, hey, we got it. You're missing some things on your application. So we do require at least a diagram of what you're removing. It doesn't need to be fancy. Like I said, I think that one's crayon and colored pencil, I think, is the medium of the design there. But this one will just kind of take you through kind of the whole, this is what my project's going to look like, this is what it looked like, and this is what's done there. So I know it's kind of hard to see there, but there is some plants on here. So if you look, there are some plantings along here, along the back, and in this area they just kind of left blank. Where initially here they have plants, and they didn't put any there because people walk there. So it just didn't make sense to kind of have plants there. So those kind of things, like I said, as we've gone through the program, it's just kind of things that we've learned and kind of adjusted to make the project successful. One of the other goals is to fully utilize the budgeted funds. And the other one is to encourage commercial applicants to apply. So the state of California did pass a mandate that banned decorative landscaping for businesses, schools, HOAs. So one of the things that we want to do is we are going to be reaching out to them with a letter, but also encouraging them to apply to the program to assist them in making those conversions. And I'm happy to answer any questions you guys may have.
Any questions?
I have a question. So, say somebody spends, I think you said $15,000 for their front yard. Is it just a percentage they get rebated?
So the amount of the rebate is going to be based on how much grass you take out. So if there's 300 square feet that you're taking out, you're going to get $600 back. It's by the square foot of the grass that you're taking out. Yeah. So that's what we want to remove because that's the most heavy use of irrigation water.
It was more, they get more back. But
Yeah.
square foot of their turf.
Yeah.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
6.3 National Opioid Settlement Update, Staff Report and Presentation by City Attorney Michael Nolan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Tonight, we're here to discuss with you the procedures with regards to the allocation of the initial payments by under the opioid settlement. And we had initially discussed this back in December 2001 when the city proceeded with registering to become a participant in the National Opioid Settlement. The settlement process has moved along, and now the state of California has received the first-year payment allocations, which are then have been identified with regards to the amount of each payment allocation going to each county and to each city who have registered to participate in the opioid settlement. As you'll know from the staff report, the initial year one payment that is available to the city of Kingsburg is $4,422.77. The county of Fresno is receiving a little over $1 million in the initial year one payment allocation. The issue before the council tonight is that the county of Fresno has been promoting and initially and throughout the settlement process that the cities in the county who have registered under the settlement program consider directing the payment of the settlement funds to the county to be utilized with county funds in order to establish a county-wide program dealing with opioid treatment and abatement. It's our understanding the purpose of this request by the county is just to provide additional funding that can be used by the county throughout the county jurisdiction, as opposed to each city using the portions of the settlement in their own jurisdiction. If the city decides to receive their share of funds as opposed to directing it to the county, then the city would need to establish an opioid treatment type program and comply with annual reporting requirements to the National Settlement Administrator and possible audits by the state of California, and to put together the program which would then be provided to the National Settlement Administrator. So the request by staff tonight is for consideration by the council as to whether or not to direct our settlement amounts to be forwarded to the county in order for to be used by the county to assist in a county-wide program, or direct staff to establish a opioid treatment program that is citywide and utilizing the funds as we receive them on an annual basis to fund that program. And as we set forth in the staff report, if the allocation of the $4,422.77 continues for the 18-year period of time, the city will receive approximately $79,000 in settlement funds to be utilized for a citywide abatement program. And the funds cannot be used for any other purpose other than opioid abatement programs and similar types of programs that deal with
Thank you. Council discussion, questions?
I think with this, $4,421 isn't going to get us anywhere near a program. It's not going to fund staffing. It's just going to be nothing but a headache. So I wouldn't support us doing anything other than turning it over. But my question for Mr. Nolan, if we accept the funds, turn them over to the county, does that alleviate us from all reporting requirements? Or are we still going to have to do some sort of reporting?
It's my understanding that if the funds go over to the county, then it'll be the county's responsibility to do the reporting for the use of the funds.
We're going to spend $4,000 in one day trying to put together a city program. Doesn't make sense.
Any other council discussion or questions? I do. I have a question. I think this money is important, but like Council Member Purcell said, like that's not going to give us what we would need as a city. It's not enough money. But who's in charge of like deciding how it's spent at the county? Is it the Board of Supervisors then it would go to decide how it's spent?
I suspect so, but what I was going to also add is that we would, staff would communicate with the county and get direction and information as to how they're going to use the funds and what type of countywide programs they're anticipating putting together. But I think the approval of the specific program that would be countywide, I suspect would be presented to the County Board of Supervisors, and they would approve that type of program.
Okay.
But we could get that clarified.
Okay. And I wonder if, other than them, if there's any other committee that might be assembled that have different city reps on it, kind of like how we have for Measure E, just guiding that. I would just want to make sure that our citizens were able to access whatever they do come up with.
Through the district attorney's office.
Okay.
They have opioid programs there.
Okay.
We can obtain that information and provide it.
Mike, you said, are there certain requirements you said for using this funding?
It has to be used for opioid.
Yeah, opioids, but I mean like, can it be just for like speakers? Does it have to be like treatment or?
I think it has to involve some type of treatment program.
Some kind of treatment, okay. You couldn't just spend it on speakers? Okay.
Or just advertising on the TV would, or on radio would be a part of the program, but you couldn't use that exclusively just for speakers or for that sort of thing. There has to be some abatement part of the program, as we understand it.
Mm-hmm. So the recommended action is to assign the city's share of settlement funds to the County of Fresno to assist with funding county-wide programs for opioid treatment and abatement.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, item 6.4. Crime statistics report for the month of June 2022 and General Police Department update. Report was prepared by Karina Padilla and presentation is by Police Chief Neil Dadian.
Good evening, Mayor North, members of the council.
Evening.
So if you take a look at the graph, we're doing okay. Headed south for the most part. Kind of good news for the month, but obviously that's dependent on a lot of other things, so hopefully we'll keep that momentum in the right direction. Just some updates on some other things that we're working on. Reported last month we had a robbery at the ARCO. Update on that. The case has been submitted to the D's office. We previously identified the suspects who are from out of the area, and we're just awaiting warrants before we finish that up. We had an assault with a deadly weapon case from 2021. Give you an update on that one. It's the suspect's going through the court system, but now being investigated for witness intimidation, so this particular individual's not helping himself out any. We had kind of an unusual case that I previously didn't mention. We've been working it for a couple of months. It involves two high-end vehicles, two McLarens and one Bentley, that were stolen out of a residence here in the city of Kingsburg. Kind of unusual. So we were able to recover one of them in the city of LA. We went down there and effected that recovery, and we've also identified some of the parties involved, and this is just kind of a weird case, and we've involved DMV investigations. They've been able to help us out quite a bit. We did make one arrest on that, but we think there's some gang activity from Southern California that just found its way up here, and because the vehicles happen to be here and a property owner happens to be here. So we're looking into that one. It's one of those unusual things that we don't normally come across. Recently, within the last couple of weeks, we had another assault with a deadly weapons case involving a firearm and some threats. Kingsburg detectives were able to identify all the suspects involved and learned that one of the suspects was also wanted in the city of Fresno for a recent home invasion robbery that also involved a couple of other suspects. Our detectives were able to identify the suspects in the Fresno Police Department case and identify them along with all of ours. And this one gets a little complicated as well. So, short version of that is we solved a case for the Fresno Police Department and our own cases, and we served a couple of search warrants here on some vehicles and one on a storage facility, and we're able to get corroborating evidence for our crimes and the Fresno crimes as well. So really good work by our detectives working with the Fresno detectives, and they were very thankful for our participation. We were able to add some police volunteers, which I hope to introduce you at a later council meeting, and so our volunteer hours are increasing, and so we're happy about that. We do have 3 vacancies, one the carryover from last fiscal year, and 2 created July 1 with the new budget and expansion from Measure E funds. So our recruitment efforts continue. That's a tough business, though. Last year at this time, or last month at this time, I would have told you I had people in the hiring pipeline, which I did. But, you know, that turns very quickly. One, she decided to stay at her agency in Bakersfield. They made her a sweet offer to stick around. Another one, she had a family situation and wasn't able to continue on with the hiring process. And then, quite frankly, another individual just left me standing at the altar. So here I am. So that's an ongoing battle, but you know, I'm not in it alone. Every police chief is in the same situation, so that fight continues. Quick update, I do have 2 police recruits in the Fresno Police Academy in different classes. One is scheduled, she's going to graduate in October, and another, she will graduate in December. We do have one trainee recently released from the field training program, and another one still in the program, and he's due out in September. So we're getting some people deployed and in the field, and that's very good news for us. One quick assignment change of note, our officers are on a 6-month rotation, and Officer Derek Gagnon was due to rotate out of his school resource officer position, which he did, and he is replaced by Officer Monique Gonzalez, who's the new school resource officer. She's been making the rounds, introducing herself at the schools, and will be a visible presence when school begins. And Officer Gagnon has been assigned to a detective position working investigations. Along those lines, just yesterday, California released, the Department of Justice released their 22-23 funding grant for the Prop 56 tobacco funds. So we'll be applying for that again. Mayor North authored the original grant, and they are actually very happy that DOJ told us that we are the highest producing agency that they have in the state as far as what we do and turning out a work product. with our intervention program, our inspection programs, and our enforcement programs. So we're just going to take your template, Mayor North, and freshen it up and use it again. And I think we'll be successful as well. Well, you got to go through the government bureaucracy, I guess. But I'll tell you this much: we're not going to send it UPS again. I will personally, once again, drive it up there and stick it in their hands. Another quick personnel issue that I haven't previously mentioned, but our officer on the adult compliance team, he's experienced an on-the-job injury. He was chasing a suspect and injured his knee. He's completed his surgery and everything is well with him, so he's on track to recover very nicely. And he'll be off for quite a while, but things are looking very good for his recovery. Our training plan is moving forward, and we're almost completed with perishable skills training. We have a couple more people just to finish up in August, and our specialty training continues on an individual basis. Our vehicle purchases still on hold. That has been really, really tough. I'm hoping to take delivery of 4 vehicles that we ordered in August out of last year's budget. And on August 4th, we're allowed to start bidding on the state bid for new vehicles, which we have more in our budget. The delay is chips, and it kind of makes it worse because I've ordered the hybrid vehicles, which I think are very useful for us, and gas conscious, obviously. And I like them, you know, I mean, it keeps our costs down, but the chips, hybrids require more chips, and, you know, so again, waiting for what is now a year for just vehicles. I'm actually convinced that they've been manufactured from what I've been told. They're probably just sitting in a lot somewhere waiting for a chip, but I don't know. So we'll see what happens, but I still think our hybrid program is a positive program, and, you know, environmentally friendly, obviously, and cost effective for us, so we'll continue with that. We're just going to have to wait for quite a bit of time to get them. Also, we've been researching body-worn cameras and dash cameras. We'll be moving forward with a purchase and implementation this fiscal year sometime. Soft target for that is probably, for the body-worn cameras, is probably by the end of this year, start of next year. Probably have that done prior to that. Dash cams may be a little bit longer. Again, we just have to figure out how many bells and whistles we want on these things, and what we can reasonably use. But the body-worn cameras aren't really a problem. The dash cameras are, I was told today actually by one of the vendors, they're about a year out from actually, if we ordered them today, it'd be a year before they could actually install them. Again, waiting for chips. So we seem to be just like everybody else in the country, in line waiting for a chip of one sort or another. Anyway, that concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions.
Council questions, discussion?
I have one question. I know I've asked it before. You said the sheriffs have taken over the investigation on the Mr. Vigo shooting. Do you know, do they have any suspects? You have no information.
We have not had an update, but because, yeah, no suspects. We've actually been doing a little bit of work on that case ourselves when the opportunity presents, but we're kind of running out of leads at this point, so nothing significant to report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
On to 7, council reports and staff communication. 7.1, Community Services Commission, nothing to report. 7.2, Public Safety Committee.
We have not met.
7.3, Chamber of Commerce.
Nothing to report.
7.4, economic development. Nothing. 7.5, finance committee. We have not. 7.6, planning commission, nothing to report. 7.7, South Kings Groundwater Sustainability Agency Joint Powers Authority.
We did meet, and we had to have an update to our general plan, the GSPs. Basically adopted the exact same GSP as everyone else in our GSA.
Thank you. 7.8, Downtown Business Improvement District. Okay, thank you. 7.9, Council of Governments. Should I say separate with Measure C renewal update?
Go ahead and put them in. You guys have it in your packet here. So this was the PowerPoint presentation for the Measure C renewal. You may or may not have heard, there's been a little bit of fun with the Measure C with our meetings. But Measure C renewal, the latest update is Measure C did pass through COG. And then from there went through last week to the Fresno Board of Supervisors where it passed. And then today it passed through FCTA, which means that's the last part. Then it will go on to the November ballot. So that is the latest of today. And so this is what they call the MC3, which is the Fresno City Alternative. Ultimately, if you look at Kingsburg, from the first from the twig, we're looking at about 58 million, and we're looking at now at a 62 million over 30 years for the city of Kingsburg. And the biggest difference is looking at local, more increased revenue for us, and especially for street repairs, and it's giving us more local control. I think that's the biggest piece between the two. That's the part that I was looking at the from the first to the final proposal. But ultimately, it's looking at going to the voters for final approval in November. Is there anything you want to add, Alex, on it? It's been a crazy ride.
Nothing from my end. I mean, obviously, I think you've been involved in more of those meetings, and kudos to you for handling some of the technical issues that occurred.
The technical issues?
Zoom
Nice,
bombing.
nice,
Yeah.
nice choice
Zoom
of words.
bombing and some other things that have occurred, but nothing from my end.
But this is the packet that for, you guys can take a look at. That's why I wanted to include it in here so you guys can look at everything to see. It's a lot, but at least you guys have everything that I've had the chance to look at as well. But it's been crazy, but we made it through and on to, like I said, the Board of Supervisors and then ultimately FCTA. So I talked to Supervisor Mendez today right after the vote, and that passed on to the next steps. So it'll be up to the voters to decide. But I think at the end of the day for myself, and I think ultimately for our rural cities, and for us, we need street repairs, curb repairs to be able to fix it. You can see here, if you leave it right there, right there, that the second bullet point, inability for agencies to repair curbs and sidewalks or to perform complete street projects is a really important thing. And that's what, in the second part here, that we're able to do now. So those are things that were really important, I think, for all of us rural cities. In here, you kind of see the differences. A lot of the CBO's issues were with things within the city limits of the city of Fresno that don't really apply to us, the rural cities. But at the end of the day, over a 30-year period, I mean, $62 million coming to the city of Fresno, and the city of Kingsburg is going to be really important, because if you ask the citizens of Kingsburg what they really need, they need street repairs. And that's what we need funding for. And so that's the main reason to vote for it today. I know you tuned in, and you tuned in a little bit there, and there was a lot of discussion and a lot of craziness over it. But you either cry or smile in some of these meetings, and so I chose to smile. And but yeah, so that's the increase be up to the voters to decide whether or not they want to vote for this or not.
I think between the two meetings, and I just got to watch via Zoom, you navigated probably 12 hours at least of meetings in very difficult circumstances. You did a great job.
Thank you. The last meeting, we started at 5:30. We actually didn't get to vote until 11:20 p.m. That was a long meeting, but it was good though. I mean, you have to have the discussion, you have to have the public comment, and we needed to hear everything. And I think we also, as a board, we had a lot of really good discussion with the city of Fresno and with the consultants and everything. And I think we got everything out, and ultimately it'll be up to the voters to decide whether or not they want to see this another Measure C, the half-cent tax on the ballot, and whether or not they want to vote for it. So,
Thank you.
well, thank you.
7.10, council member reports. No?
The only thing, I have one thing. The Matson Bike Trail's finished, and I cycled on it a couple times the past Saturday, a couple Saturdays, and it's nice, you know. It turned out pretty good, really good. Last Saturday compared to the Saturday before, the property owner did just some disking, and he did a good job, you know. Not, I mean, he did have to ride over it, but he didn't damage it. You know, there's dirt on it, a little bit of dirt, and a few leaves, but he you know, hopefully he continues to do that. You know, I think he will. You know, but it's nice. So
Thank you.
that's all I have.
I have two things. I believe it was a week and a half ago, Car and Driver magazine came to town. They had contacted us ahead of time, and they brought a 1964 Volvo that was painted like a Swedish flag. And the owner is Swedish. They took lots of pictures. They loved our town. He had flown over from Sweden. He was very excited, like looking at everything downtown, and then we took him to Katie's Kitchen and had Swedish pancakes. He said they were just like his grandma makes. And it's going to be, I think, in the October, November issue, but it will also be online. So kind of showcasing our town. I didn't realize it until after I sat in it that it was worth $700,000. So that's exciting for our town. And then the second thing is on Sunday evening, I got to welcome the 9 and Under tournament that's happening at the Suffragan Field. And the exciting thing is it brought in for this whole week, it was like 110 degrees at that time. And our parents had been prepping since 9 a.m. that morning, but they said that it's brought in over 600 people from 5 different states into Kingsburg, and they're here through this whole week. So I encouraged them to come downtown, check out our river to cool off, and so those are two exciting things. Anything, Michelle? Okay. Thank you. 7.11, City Manager's Report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do have a couple of items, a few updates. Mentioned earlier in the evening about the striping project. That bid opens next week on the 26th. So we'll be getting that started shortly thereafter. It's a pretty large package of work, so they'll be kind of throughout several parts of town, most of it including night work. One update on the roundabout, we had hoped that that work would have already commenced. Unfortunately, there's been issues with the procurement of lighting that will be needed for that, and you can't open a roundabout without the correct lighting, and so we're working closely with the contractor to basically get temporary lighting options and a revised timeline, so I'll share that when that's available. The Stone Plaza project did receive all their final approvals last Wednesday, and so they've started some of that work and have started to receive courtesy inspections, so we're hopeful that that will ramp up pretty quickly here. Myself, Public Works Director Galvez, and Sergeant Forlines met with the Chamber this morning. They are intending to do the Kingsburg Street Eats program the first Friday of each month, so we're kind of working through them with them on that. The next one is scheduled for August 5th. JD was talking about, so California has passed that by 2035 there will be no more combustible engines that will be sold in the state of California. So really trying to work on, I think there's some funding available now through the infrastructure bill, and trying to prepare the city really from a fleet perspective, how we will handle that for all of our public works and police and all those other vehicles by that time frame. And then finally, we are looking hopefully to hold a joint meeting with the council and the planning commission on August 11th. So we'll be reaching out on your availability on that. It's related to our housing element update, which is required, and so we have to hold some public hearings, and so we'll be speaking with all you on that. That's all I have.
Thank you. And item 8, future agenda items, we have none listed. Item 9, the Kingsburg City Council is going to adjourn out of regular calendar into closed session for 9.1, conference with labor negotiators, code section 54957.6. 9.2, conference with real property negotiators, 54956.8. 9.3, conference with real property negotiators, code section 54956.8.